So what we're going to be covering today is positioning that drives sales as an IT consultant. Please just let me know if you guys can see my screen and you can hear me well. Just in the chat, just so I have some feedback that everybody can hear us. We're gonna get ahead. So what we're gonna have today, what we're gonna cover today in our agenda, we're gonna go over where do we get the data from, just so you have an understanding how we're coming up with this. We are going to talk about whether positioning is necessary for you and when should you do it, when should you actually start working on your positioning so you are sure that this is relevant for you at the time. Then we are going to jump into the framework that we have, our positioning framework, so you can understand how this is done step by step, so that way you can also just do it by yourself in case you just want to apply this. So just a quick intro on who we are, where we get data from. We are AceMakers. We are a consulting company for IT consulting companies. So this is data and frameworks created by our team based on around 300 companies that we work with. In our team, we have former Google, Oliver Wyman, PwC, as well as Microsoft, SAP, business development team members. So together, we created those frameworks and the data. For today's panelists who are going to be pulling into this conversation, I'm Matt. I'm head of consulting with AceMakers. I'm based in Phoenix, in Arizona, with Fabian Esfish, who's currently sitting in Dubai. And we have Eric, who is in Spain. And we have Alex von Reich, who's also in Phoenix, in Arizona. Me and Fabian were co-founders of AceMakers. Eric is working on the lead gen side of things and focusing more on the implementation of positioning. And Alex is one of our clients. We wanted to pull him in as well to share some of the interesting perspectives, not only what works, but also what doesn't work, which is what I wish people talked more about on webinars, because nobody talks about things that don't actually work when you try them. So you understand all different angles. Our clients book meetings with enterprise, and we are able to get meetings with the companies, as you can see here. Most of the people that we work with, though, they don't try to go to such big accounts, but we're going to show you ways to try to approach enterprise, but also try to approach smaller companies. Just so you have an understanding who we work with and what we know. We work with IT consulting companies. I think it was on the webinar page, but I just want to be clear that this is going to be very valuable for you if you run an IT consulting company. So if this is any ERP, CRM consulting, if you're an MSP, industry-specific process optimization, IT recruitment, cloud, BI, data analytics company, then this is relevant for you. If you're not, then we don't know much about other topics. This is what we specialize in. And then we specialized working with companies from 1 to 50 full-time employees. Larger companies can afford typically to work with bigger consulting companies. So if you are within that range, then this can be very relevant for you, because we're going to show you frameworks on how you can do it by yourself, how you can do it inexpensively, working on positioning for your IT consulting company. Just a few examples so you can have an understanding of what we're basing data on. Just to get an idea for you based on our clients, for example, based on our SAP client from France, where we're able to work together to get to the top tier luxury retail clients in France for SAP retail module, which is very specific market, local market, which is very specific in terms of technology, very specific within SAP, and also very specific in terms of an industry. So that's an example of a good positioning. You can obviously look up this company and you can get a good idea how well this is positioned in the sense of targeting the exact client, which is luxury retail in France with a specific problem that they have. Another example from MSP world, our client from Berlin, from Germany. It's an MSP company, previously having a bit of confusion on what to target, what types of clients to target. And with our approach that I'll be sharing with you guys today, we're going to show you how we tackled USPs, positioning strategy that led to creating a good outbound strategy so that this company can get one client every single month through the outbound, from industry specific process optimization for higher tickets for 100,000 euros plus contracts, just so you can understand the spectrum. Because those MSPs contract can start from 200 euros, $200 a month for industry specific optimizations. Here's an example of positioning that gets to around 100,000 euros in additional revenue for supply chain digitalization. So that's the data that's through our one of the companies that we created and managed. So that's the data that we're basing it on. That's based on the project clients. Today I'll be sharing with you, we're going to be having the panel discussion and sharing with you how to get to something like this by yourself. This is very confusing to everyone. And the biggest question that everybody comes to us with when we have our consulting work done is how to get clients outside of their network. So obviously this is not because people have the burning desire to work on their positioning. It's just the necessary need. And we will explain to you now how getting clients, and especially getting clients from outside of your network, is connected to working and improving your positioning, and why this is so important. So I just want to jump in first into just explaining you over a couple of minutes just before we jump into the framework why positioning is important, because I really want to convince you to start working on improving your positioning, and I just want to share our logic behind this. So we, over the last couple of years working with 200 projects plus, we created a very simple framework. We call it AceMakers framework, and it's basically designed on the assumptions that most of the people get clients based on their and from their network. Only people oftentimes, when they start their company, when they're 1 to 50 FTEs, they quit an enterprise job, start their company, they pull a couple of clients with them, and they really base everything on them, but they have challenge growing further. I'm sure a lot of you here on this call can resonate with this, because that's a lot of people who come to us. And so obviously they say that, hey, I want more sales. And, obviously that's the biggest question for everyone. So I first want to break down on how to get there. So maybe I'm just going to pull you, Fabian, in for a second just to explain this logic on diving into getting more sales reverse engineered.
Sure. Thank you so much. Matt has talked about on what we're basing our data on. Maybe from a personal perspective, I'm running the sales department for my sales agency in Germany. Over the last 4 years, I've covered more than 1,000 sales calls, and in the end, sales or more revenue is broken down into two simple elements. Sales requires more sales meetings, and to get more sales meetings, you need to make sure to contact more people. Now, what does more sales meetings mean, or how does more sales meeting turn into more sales? Obviously, the more calls you have, the more doors you open, the more relationships you can build through a standardized process. You can build a system that quite confidently converts this higher number of sales meeting into more revenue. And the same then exists for the next step. More contact requests are required to book more sales meetings. Once you've figured out a sales funnel that works for you, you need to stabilize it. But once you've stabilized it, you are at a position where you can actually forecast your upcoming next month's leads that you generate. But not only this, you have also established a basis that you can use to think about how you can duplicate what you're actually doing, and based on that, when you've reached that, you basically, you're close to getting a scalable system that Matt will talk about in a second a bit more. But it is simply broken down. More sales means more sales meeting means more contact requests.
And in order to get more sales, you need, obviously, you need lead generation. And you'll see in a second how it all ties down to positioning. And this is a big one because I think 60-70% of people who I talk with, they come to us and they say, hey, I want more sales. And then the other 30-40 is like, hey, I want more lead generation. And they think of working with some marketing companies. But I don't think this is the main problem. I think there's a different problem that's underlining. But let's break down lead generation first. How can you actually make successful generation? Fabian, if you don't mind commenting on this one again.
Yeah, again, I mean, again, in the end, it's about getting more contacts to generate more leads. And there are two basic or fundamental pillars that need to be clear before you can run successful lead generation campaigns. Number one is an attractive offering, and number two is a very clear positioning. Why is an attractive offering so important? And I want to give you a very simple example. Think about a bakery, and think about the scenario that your product is bread and you're selling bread to a baker. You can do whatever you want sales wise. You will never be able to sell a bread to a baker. Why? Because your offering is just not attractive to the baker, because the baker can bake his own bread, right? When it comes to clear positioning, we are all in the area today, all in the area of OT consulting. Now think about, you would offer the exact same bakery and, I don't know, SAP consulting project. Obviously, you can do whatever you want sales-wise. You will never get through with your pitch because your offering is not solving your target persona's problem. So the positioning is off. And again, these two examples should just highlight how important an attractive offering and a clear positioning is, because without those two pillars, there's basically no chance that you will successfully and efficiently get leads in a sustainable way.
And thanks, Fabian. And this is why positioning is really on top of everything. And this is really the first thing you want to work on before you get into lead generation and sales and delivering your service. There's one more thing that a lot of people talk to us about, and it's a very common pattern. That's why I want to say this is not enough. People say that, hey, I just get like 1 or 2 clients per month. So we always also talk about the structure of scaling it. Sales is a numbers game. So it's important to do what you figured that you need to do 10 times more. I'm sure you're familiar with 10x rule. So that is a good idea. But then people also come to us and they say, hey, but I sent 1,000 or thousands of messages all the time and it just doesn't work. Or they say, or then we tell them, hey, don't try to market everything to everyone, because the messages you're sending, and now if you're going to look into your inbox on LinkedIn or email, I'm sure you're going to see messages that say something along the lines of, hey, we are a software development agency and we can do everything from WordPress websites to SAP implementation, and we can also tie your tie. So that also obviously doesn't work because you're amplifying a hollow message. So you need to understand the quality and quantity of your messages, and both are true. You need to not market everything to everyone and not amplify a hollow message, but also game up your numbers and do exactly what works 10 times. But what's most important here is to do this in a sequential order of a framework. So you cannot start with quantity. You cannot just go to marketing agency, or you can't just, by yourself come up with an idea of, hey, I'm going to start blasting thousands of messages a week and hope for the best. You need to do this in sequential order. That's going to be after positioning. Maybe, Fabian, just the last question to you. You work a lot with frameworks, scaling, managing teams. Maybe you can just comment just the basic requirements for scaling something that already works as a system here.
Yeah, in the end, as you said before, sales is a numbers game. It's not based on gut feeling. If you base your decision on numbers, you need to track them, right? And based on your reportings, based on your tracking, you get a quite transparent clarity on what works and what doesn't work. And obviously, once you figure out that certain things don't work, don't spend more time doubling down on those things. find the things that work and focus on the things that work. Now, to give you an example, a very specific example, if you reach out to people on LinkedIn through connection requests, roughly somewhere between 20 and 30% of the people you try to connect with, they accept your connection request, right? So 70 to 80% never respond. You have two options. You could try to doubling down on the 70-80% that don't react to your message, or you can double down on the 20 to 30% that actually gives you a positive response. Obviously, it's more efficient to doubling down on the 20 to 30% that already gave you a positive sign, and make sure that you convert them to a first sales meeting.
Right. Thanks, Fabio. So this is fixing about what's not working and doing more of what works. But in order to do that, you need to measure this through tracking sheets and have clear SOPs. And this is the bottom of the framework. This is scaling everything. So now if you look at the sequential order of things, you start with positioning and offer, then you go into lead generation, your go-to-market strategy, then you can work on your sales process, then you can start scaling everything, and then you can deliver your service. So now, a lot of people are just stuck in this area. They're just stuck in, hey, I'm the IT company, I'm delivering this and that, but they're missing this whole package around this. So today, obviously, we only have around 30, 40 more minutes, so we can't focus on every single pillar, but we're going to be focusing on the first and most important pillar for every single IT consulting company below 50 FTEs, which is positioning an offer. And I just want to say that we are going to break apart this boulder that we're pushing up the hill. It's typically extremely hard. It's so hard to figure this out, and I'm sure that, and I mean, just drop it in chat if this has ever been challenged for you, but it's extremely hard for people to figure out what is their positioning, what is that I do, what is that I am. It's kind of like a self-discovery journey, but it's the most urgent and the most important task to focus on. So I do actually have this here. So just think of this metaphor of pushing this boulder and just see this in Eisenhower matrix as important and urgent and not something that you can just do later. Everybody's just delaying this. Today we're going to pulling in Alex, who's going to talk about his experience, why doing this first is so important. We're going to have a bunch of examples for you, but this is really one of the hardest things you need to do, and this is just a frog that you have to eat. So how do we measure what we're going to be telling you? How do we measure the positioning? How are we looking at our framework? We're essentially trying to achieve as high positioning strength as possible. So what we're measuring today through this webinar, just so you understand which direction we're going here, is we're trying to find something that's in demand, that's multiplied by market rate. So something that people want and something that people are going to and willing to pay as much as possible for this, divided by competition. So you can think of basic supply and demand equation here that you probably know from high school, but also multiply by delivery effort. So if it's ideal world, there would be something that's super in demand, that people are willing to pay a lot for, that there is not much competition for, and that it's extremely easy for you to deliver. Now we're not going to make it as perfect, but we're trying to get as close as possible to increase positioning strength by presenting the framework to you during this webinar. So let's jump right into this. Now, for your brainstorming and how you can come up with ideas that you're going to be thinking of as we're going to be jumping into this, I want you to think now of just basing it on your experience. When we work with clients, we're using our insights and clients' experience, but right now on this webinar, just use your experience. I'm going to pull some people here for a couple of examples, but think about the gaps in the market that you see. Now, this is without market research. This is just something you have seen doing your work. Then think about clients. We think about our clients' primary competences. So think about your primary competences. Then think about the really rare competencies that you have that are maybe not your primary ones, but really rare. Then think about the best results you got for your clients and what are the easiest clients to deal with. In ideal world, you would have a spreadsheet with all your clients that could look like this. I'll be sharing this for those staying until the end of the webinar along with a bunch of other gifts. So we'll be sharing this for you so you can input your clients to analyze this and you can analyze them. But you would have a spreadsheet like this. You would want to look at clients that make you the most revenue and clients that make your business the most stable. So for example, a lot of people that we work with, when they have something like Azure implementation deployment, or they set a bunch of Microsoft things for companies, they can have an injection of cash at first, but maybe this is not stable business for them. Whereas when they then convert more into MSP, subscription model for their clients, they start getting very stable revenue. They can also mix those two. So those clients tend to almost never leave for them. Now, what's extremely important for you, if you look on the left side of this slide, or I'm not sure if this is mirroring for you or on the right side, but you can see those dots where I put this picture of positioning decoys. And this is really important that you watch out for positioning decoys. And positioning decoys for most of our clients are this one big client that they work with that they pulled when working in an enterprise or working with a bigger company before as an employee or a freelancer, and now they think that they will mainly get most of those clients that are similar to them. Now, this is mostly not true, and the reason for this is because they have developed this account inside of their company mainly because of their relationship. And relationship building is hard, lengthy, and it's just very unlikely that you're just going to find the same clients in the same way. So you need to think of something that's more sustainable. I'm just going to mute somebody there. All right, so that's what I want you to think of as the base for this framework. Now, let's jump into the framework that we work with all of our clients. So we first jump into ideal client profile. So we call this ICP. Now, ICP, this is a company. We're not talking about the person. We're not talking about the people in the company. We're talking about the company. So let's just dive into ICP. What is ICP and how do you break this down and how can you think about it based on your research? So what you want to do when you're thinking about your ideal client profiles, you want to think about the regions, industry and sector, their business model, number of employees, annual revenue and unit economics, technology stack, other vendors that they work with at example companies. So let's go with a couple of examples here. Now, feel free if you want to just drop in chat types of companies you work with, and then I'll be pulling them in some of the examples in a second in the next slides, so we can show you how we normally work with this. Otherwise, I'll just go with our other examples. So for example, when you're thinking about regions of companies you want to work with, you want to think of how specific are you in terms of technology. So I'm drawing this vertical line for you, and how and what industries you can work with. So that's horizontal positioning. And then you can think of a region based on that. So for example, when we work with a company that's very specific with their connectivity technology, and I'm not going to describe exact technologies because of NDAs, but they work with an extremely specific technology within connectivity. And it's so rare that it's really hard to even find companies within one country. They work with big accounts like BMW or Apple, but there is really no specific industry. So horizontally, for them, it doesn't really make sense to say that, hey, we're focusing on automotive or end user electronics. For them, it makes sense to focus more vertically within the technology and not even focus within one specific region. But for example, when we work with our MSP clients, for example, the one I was showing you from Berlin, For them, this is much more beneficial, and they got way better results when we started focusing only on Berlin, only to approach clients there, because being a local MSP where business owners can meet you in person, it is a massive advantage. It's just a huge advantage because of trust. So it's really depending on your business model, your offer, your end client. And as you can see here, an MSP, for example, would benefit typically. It all depends. Just don't take everything with a grain of salt. It's a lot of brainstorming, but it would be better than to focus on one specific location, and the more specific, the better. But then you don't need to focus horizontally as deeply. For industry and sector, here, what's extremely important is that you're not generic. And then most of the people here, and I'm sure it's something you might be thinking of when you're thinking of industry and sector, you're going to go for, or people going to think of something like healthcare or lawyers. But this is too generic. You really have to dig way deeper. And you need to dig way deeper by understanding where you are in the IT supply chain. So for example, we work with a lot of IT companies. That's the purple color, the first one here. Then serve their end client, their client who's not an end client on the very right side. So the end client on the very right side could be the B2C buyer that's, I don't know, buying a BMW car, for example, but they would build a component for this remote, and to build that component, you would need to code some kind of software that connects that remote with a car. And so you need to understand exactly where you are on this supply chain and not think about this in a simplistic way. The next, what we have here is business model. The bottom line here is you need to understand how they make money, so you can figure out how to help them make more money. So even if it's cost cutting, you still need to be able to justify how you're helping them making more money. And if you're not able to explain how you're helping make your clients more money, or if you don't understand their business model, now feel free to take a screenshot of this. I'm not going to dive deeper into those numbers, an example, but you have an example here, how we're thinking about it. We really want to know how our software is saving money by understanding, or how our IT solution is saving money by understanding how they make money, what's their pricing, what's their business model, how do they exactly work with their clients. Here you can see an example of property management company. It's not commercial real estate, that's for property management, like typical houses, where this is a company streamlining processes of HOA. So that's something you really need to dig deeper and understand. And then you need to understand the number of employees that they have. And this one is interesting. So what you want to do is you want to understand how you can take advantage of your positioning. If they are an enterprise, let's, think of, for example, Honeywell, they would typically potentially not need your solution. Maybe they already have team for everything. Amazon in Seattle has Salesforce consultants working internally for pretty much everything. So is Salesforce consulting that you're doing helpful to Amazon? Maybe not. So that's something you want to think of when it comes to sizes of companies that you're targeting. Or maybe you don't want to work with tiny companies because they can't afford their services. You want to look at annual revenue and unit economics, how much money they are making, so you can understand their unit economics and how they can pay you and how much they can pay you. And you need to understand their tech stack. For you, it's essential information specifically for IT consulting companies, so you can understand what integrations you need to work with. Or also you need to understand how complicated it is for them to move to another solution. And just a hint, if the bigger the company it is, unless it's bringing massive amount of value, they're unlikely to lift a finger to start changing their current setup. So you really need to think and understand the tech stack and other vendors that they work with. Those would be other than the tech stack above. So that gets you to ideal client profile. The next step is buyer persona. Now the difference between ICP and buyer personas is buyer personas are specific people inside of the company. And so here you need to see this in a way of, and what we've observed is that the bigger the company, the longer the sales cycle and the more complicated the sales cycle is. So here I'm showing you an example of a sales cycle in an enterprise where we targeted the Spark buyer first. So you can think of somebody being at the trade show, just seeing your booth and just bringing end user from your enterprise to that booth and saying, hey, you got to see this, you got to check this out. So that's end user. Then end user can push this in front of decision influencer inside of the company, who can then push this in front of secondary decision makers. So for example, you can think of a platform manager, if it's enterprise setting, who can then push this in front of CTO, but going through procurement and legal and gatekeepers. So most of people, when they are thinking about finding their buyer personas, they try to tackle this from this side. They think very simplistically in a way of, hey, let's push our solution in front of the CTO through LinkedIn. It is very unlikely. You need to understand multi-threading in sales, and you need to understand the full cycle there, the bigger the company is. Now, if it's a smaller company that you're working with, obviously that's an overkill, but that's something that you want to think of. So when you're breaking down that buyer persona, you have to think of their job title. Again, if you have specific job titles of buyer personas that you work with and you want me to use this as an example, just drop this in the chat. I'm just going to use example of a CEO here. So what you want to do is you want to create a picture of that person just so you can visualize what they look like. You can use ChatGPT and DALL-E. It's going to create it for you. And then you want to think about their characteristics, like what are their mindsets, business approaches, etc. What are the things they say, which you can based on interviews with them, which we're going to be covering in a second. But for example, we had a person saying that Honeywell outbid me on hiring in Phoenix. So that's why they can't hire the right technical person for their company. You want to look into their desires, and now you really got to dig deeper in here than, hey, this CEO wants to satisfy his stakeholders. That is really vague. You really want to understand deeply what is that they're struggling with at the moment. Then you get to problem solution fit. And I'm going to be speeding through this a little bit now just because we have 25 more minutes left. But in order to go through problem solution fit, you want to break down pain points of each of those buyer personas, solution that you want to provide to them, and you want to understand which awareness stage they are at. Now, you want to, if you don't know what awareness stages are in the sales process, then just Google this. That's going to be very important for you to understand and where each of those personas is. Then you want to understand unique selling points. So you want to understand what are the existing solutions to the problems, why they don't work, how your solution and what your solution looks like. And based on that, you can create unique selling points, USPs. And then when you get all of this together. Yeah.
I hear a lot, USPs are quite easily swiped away and considered as not as relevant. But when I ask my leads, oftentimes I hear, yeah, my USPs, I have 30 years of experience. Let me tell you something. Experience is not a USP. Every single competitor in your pitch names experience as one of their USPs. It doesn't matter whether you have 15 years, 20 years, 30 years of experience. A, it's not a USP. B, it's not relevant for your client anyways, because the only thing that your client is thinking about, how do you improve my day? What problems do you solve? I don't care about the client doesn't care about experience. If the intern delivers the solution to the problem, the intern gets the job. Make sure when you're thinking about USPs to really think about your unique story, the story that makes you special among the 5 competitors that are pitching to the same lead that you're pitching at that moment.
Right. Thanks, Fabian, for adding this. And by the way, for you to go through this, We have a framework prepared. I'll be sharing this for those staying until the end of the call, along with some other gifts that we prepared for you. But we have this entire document that you can go together with your team. You can go through this and you can fill in buyer persona, ICP, unique selling points, with all the explanations on how to do that. And then once you do that, once you have that, you would want to create offer formulation. An offer formulation framework, it's going to be metaphorically, it's your Bible that you are going to use for everything else in your marketing, in your messages. So what you want to do is you want to collect all this information and what we found works the best as a structure for LinkedIn messages, Facebook ads, landing page, websites, everything pretty much is to structure this as attention, diving into a problem, diving into a solution, then handling and pre-handling objections, establishing trust, and adding call to action. So we made that framework as well. So that's something I'll be sharing for those staying until the end of the webinar for the next 20 minutes, along with other gifts. But you can also fill this in with your team. Here are some examples that you can think of. Here's information how you can think of a problem, of a solution, of objections, so that you can take all that information from the positioning framework and you can apply this inside of this framework. Once you have that part handled, we are creating one sentence marketing message. So again, this is a framework. I'm going to be sending this to you. Here you just want to very briefly describe what is that that you do so that people understand it in one sentence. If you can't do it, then you don't get this right. And then you want to create one-pager positioning. So all this information is very vast. There is a lot of documents, PDFs. You want to put this in one pager so that your marketing team can just use this. So what one pager looks like. Yeah.
I wanted to add something about the one-line marketing message, but go ahead with the framework and let me add it afterwards.
Okay, yeah, so this is what positioning framework looks like. So this is something you would just give to your marketing team so they can just have one pager and they could understand how to work with it. This is something that Eric would, for example, work with. Maybe Eric, you can just before you jump in, Fabian, maybe you can just share some insights just in a couple of sentences, since you are managing LinkedIn and other channels for lead generation. Why do you need this, and what do you do with information like this working with the marketing team?
Hello, everyone. So this information in this document is extremely valuable for me, because as a person who is actually looking for the leads, looking for right people to contact, with all those information is like super easily applicable to any tools that I use, like Sales Navigator or build up lists for cold email in Apollo. And the more information I get and the more specific the information are, it's easier for me to identify those people and to find the right candidates, but also to, let's say, to learn how we can structure the outreach, how many leads are out there to be contacted.
Thanks, Eric. Fabian, you wanted to add something about one sentence marketing message.
Can you quickly Google advertising column and go on images?
Advertising what?
Advertising column.
Can you type it in the chat?
Advertising.
Okay.
Can you click on images? Okay, so everybody of us knows what an advertising column is. For those who don't, this is why we have the pictures on live now. Imagine, and I want to talk about the relevance of this one-line marketing message. Imagine you go through a city, you pass the next advertising column, and think about how much time you give the poster on that column to decide whether it's interesting to you or whether you go on. Probably it will be less than, or will be about 1, 2, 3 seconds, right? Now, knowing that on the other side of this poster, there's a company obviously wanting to promote their products. This company knows they have 1, 2, 3 seconds to trigger your interest. Because if they don't trigger your interest, you will just pass. You cannot even communicate your message in an entire sentence within 1 or 2 seconds. Oftentimes, it's even less than a sentence. What I want to say, and it doesn't matter whether it's an advertising column, your LinkedIn profile, or your website, the first touch you have with a potential new lead, it decides within 2 or 3 seconds whether his interest is triggered or not. And if you're not able to communicate your offering, your value add, the pain points that you solve within 1, 2, 3 seconds, this lead goes on. The same way that you go on at the next advertising column when it doesn't trigger your interest. It just highlights the importance of summarizing your offering into 1 sentence, sometimes even less.
Thanks, Fabian. And then here is really interesting thing that I want to share with you guys. Once you have all of this figured out through your brainstorming, I want to talk about market research and validation. Now, you might not have hundreds and thousands of dollars to invest in big consulting firms' market research, but there are some ways on how you can do this by yourself. It's true across every business. So one of the stories that really made me think that, hey, this is essential is when I was listening to the podcast from Airbnb founders who said that, hey, we did not make this work until we started actually visiting those people, seeing their flats and understanding what is going on, getting their feedback. And the feedback was that, hey, the pictures are really hard to take. The pictures don't look good on the website. Until you start talking to people, you don't really know. And I will just get Alex, one of our clients, to just share a story in a second and some of those thoughts. I just want to briefly tell you about the method that we are using to quickly validate your assumptions. We simply send emails to people who did not accept our connection requests because they are the exact target audience that we're going after, and we want to get their feedback. We're not trying to sell anything, but we're trying to get a good understanding. And I've done it for multiple different industries, talking with farmers, talking with really pretty much anyone. And here is what I found. Easy buyer personas reply and want to talk with you over the phone 20-25% of the time. So from 30 emails, we can get 7 actual calls. Average buyer personas, 5 to 10%, and hard buyer personas like CTOs and CEOs, we can get anywhere between 0.5 to 1%. Now, what we found works well, at least for us internally when we're doing this market research, is we are sending a message coming from a position of a small business owner. So we're not trying to be cocky. We're just trying to say that, hey, I'm working on the project within that industry. You can take a screenshot of that message here. That's my best working message. Here we simply say that I'm a small business owner and I'm trying to figure something out and I would benefit from your expertise. I always drop my phone number because it just comes across more natural, I guess it feels like I'm putting my guard down, and I end up having at least 10 hours of calls over one market research for each of the clients that we're working with. But Alex, I'm super curious to hear your thoughts about market research because you said that this is one of the most important things in the business process, business development.
Absolutely. So, like Matt mentioned earlier, I definitely fell into a positioning decoy. So I had made a lot of assumptions about my offer, my ICP, and a lot of those things. So I had just figured that stuff would keep rolling in that direction. However, we started doing outreach, and we were doing a lot of outreach, and nothing was really sticking. And it was very frustrating. but I realized that I didn't really validate with any kind of market research. So Matt suggested we take a step back, we reach out, go from the research perspective, and through that, and through some very, very important conversations with people, I found out that my offer was good, but not good enough. And there were actually other pain points that were much bigger and much more important to those ICPs to solve that I could actually help out with. So once I was able to pivot to those, I got a lot more interest and a lot of people who are really actually wanted to talk to me. So if you're hitting your head against the wall a lot, you're spending a lot of energy and it doesn't seem like you're getting anything out of it, odds are you could be making a very deadly assumption for your business. So taking a step back and actually going and doing research can be incredibly beneficial because you don't know what you don't know.
And would you mind sharing a bit on like what you were thinking is the problem and which area you discovered is a problem, or I mean, if you want to keep this confidential, that's fine as well. I think it's a good
Sure.
example.
Yeah. So for clarity, I do a lot of analytics, and so with the people that I talk to, they're like, okay, this is great, but I don't know if it's worthwhile for us to actually spend money to optimize for this stuff. Even though it saves us time and money, it feels like more work than what it's worth. And I was focusing on people in specifically commercial real estate. And a lot of these people actually ended up saying when I went to do the research, oh, you know what's a really big issue is actually property taxes. So with that, I combined my analytics background and started solving for that instead. And I got a completely different response from a lot of the same people. Whereas before they didn't really respond to anything. After when I was switching messaging, they're like, oh, well, this is actually something I'm much more interested in. And I would love to see a solution for that. So it really came down to I had offered based on one client. And I didn't really have any other market validation. So going back and taking a step back and doing the research really, really helped.
And what I think is important is just this understanding then that, hey, and those are things I wouldn't know before neither, but they can change the rates of property taxes based on the value of the land at any time. And if you manage, multiple thousands of properties, that means millions of dollars of money that you're losing every month that you can easily just sue government for and just get this back. And then you're, in the right. So those are the things. It's really hard to know and understand and figure this out if you're just assuming, if you're not talking to those buyer personas, and they share things that you would never think of. And then the last step, once you got all this together, thanks, appreciated, Alex. Once you got everything together here, once you have your framework figured, once you have your buyer personas, offer formulation, one sentence marketing message, one pager positioning, and you validate this, then you can start working on go-to-market strategy. Now we have just a couple more minutes left, so obviously we cannot cover go-to-market strategy, what this looks like, what channel to choose, but this is all the information you get based on that. So what I want to do now is I want to just leave some time for questions and also give a couple of gifts to everyone here for staying until the end. So I will do the following. I will offer you guys some gifts, and then we're gonna jump into questions. So first of all, so let me just share with you what we can give you today for staying with us. First of all, I will be offering for anyone staying until the end a free 30 minutes assessment of their positioning. So if you would like to know what are the sticking points in your positioning, I am sending you my Calendly. It's 30 minutes free evaluation, and I do have only a couple of time slots here, so they are just on the first grab, first take basis. So go ahead and grab them. Also, for those who book a call, we're going to be handing our templates that you can use with your team before the meeting, so you can go over this, so you can have your client analysis. We're going to be sharing our entire framework on understanding your ICP and buyer persona, as well as offer formulation framework, one sentence marketing slogan, positioning executive summary, and our example go-to-market strategy workflow that you can just use as well based on that. So I'm super happy to share those gifts with anyone wanting to have a call with us. So just grab them. I think I'm seeing some of the spots already grabbed. I think we have a few more left, and then let's jump into questions now. We have a couple of minutes left, so let's see what questions we have. So Gordon is asking for any recommendations on a framework. So Gordon, can you clarify this question? Maybe you can, if you want, you can just unmute yourself, and then you can just give more context to your question. All right. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, this is Emre.
Hey.
I am also the founder of a IT consulting company, and we are also giving consulting for the companies for the IT sales as well. To be honest, it was really so much fun, and I also learned a lot from your presentation, guys. Thank you very much for that, and especially to Fabian, you sometimes stop the presentation and gave some important notes. It was very valuable, to be honest. And besides what you have explained, I think it's all good, and most I agree on says that you have to have and create more interactions with the customer. This is a must, I think, for any company to be successful in this sales, to create more interactions with the customer. I just wanted to thanks about the webinar. To be honest, it was really very beneficial for me.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it. That's very nice to always hear good feedback. So that's very kind of you. Thank you so much. And as for the booking page, I think we have looks like 4 or 5 spots left. I think next week Friday is gone, and this week is gone already. So please grab them for anyone if you would like to have that free 30 minutes analysis of your positioning. And then let's see other questions. Does anybody else have any other questions? I know, Gordon, you had a question, but I just need more context on your question. Greg, do you have any place like a chat for instant communication of our group? So our clients, Greg, so we have all our clients inside of a community where they do communicate. We don't have a place for non-clients, so to speak, if that is what you mean. So yeah, I mean, if you'd like to be part of this, just hit me up as well. So we could add you to that for sure. Just let me know. I can drop my email here, and then you can also book a 30 minutes call with me. Thank you for booking, guys. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bookings now, 8 now. Just make sure you grab your last spots. I think there are 3 or 4 left. Other than that, let me see. Question from Alexander. Really good presentation. Thank you so much. Again, think we could get the recording. Yes. You can get the recording. We're not publishing the recording for sure, but if you like to grab the recording, just email me. I will share recording with anybody booking a call with me for sure, along with other materials. And if you did not book that call, I can still share the recording with you. Just email me, because I don't know if we're going to be publishing this or not. Most of the times we don't publish those, or at least not right away.
Can I?
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So I just want to ask a quick question, actually. And I think because, when you're talking about LinkedIn specifically, and I've had experience on, doing some sort of like LinkedIn campaigns and stuff. some of those would bear some results, but many of those would not bear any results. But I was just wondering, just to take on it that like, what do you recommend? Like, are you saying that LinkedIn doesn't work, or do you say that there's a proper way for it to work, and you got to do your background work and so on? So what's your take on that?
I feel like Fabian really wants to answer.
My entire business exists based on LinkedIn, and it runs sustainable since 4.5 years. 1,000 sales calls booked through LinkedIn for only our company. Obviously, we also do it for our consulting clients. With that company, we focus a bit on the German-speaking market, but yes, LinkedIn does work, but there's a lot of aspects that need to fit together to make it work. What I would like to recommend is trying to evaluate every single step or every single stone that you have and turn it around and test different things. There is no blueprint that you can just pull over your head and say, okay, this works for this company. I just pull it over my head and now it works for my company. There's always an individual aspect with it that comes with it, but it is about testing, understanding your buying persona, and make sure that you actually hit a pain point. Hit the pain point where it hurts the most for your buying persona.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we do hit the pain point, absolutely.
Would you mind if you wouldn't mind, you can simply quickly drop the link to your LinkedIn profile?
Yeah, sure, I can. Thank you. Thanks for answering the question.
And I can just add to it, and that's probably the last thing before we wrap up, because we're on the top of the hour. These are typically the funnels that work for most of our clients in B2B IT consulting. LinkedIn funnel works really, really well for us. In fact, we've built another company that just does done for you LinkedIn lead generation, but we also just consult all the clients on how to do that. We do this ourselves. We are booking around 50 calls, 30 to 50 calls per month just from LinkedIn. Cold email funnel, webinars, and strategic partnerships. But all this in the connection with collateral. And I think this is really, really important to add here. And I will be covering this on the next webinar when we're going to be talking more about the go-to-market strategy and actual lead generation. So definitely stay tuned for that, because if you enjoy this and if you thought it's a lot of value, well, first of all, I appreciate it, but secondly, we'll be talking more about the data we get in a more similar context to previous webinar when we're talking about selling into enterprises and IT consultant, when we talked about the touch points, but we're going to be talking more about the go-to-market strategy, and we're going to be basing it on the data from Gartner, HBR, but also from our 200, 300 IT consulting clients on how to build those funnels. And it's really not just about whether this is LinkedIn or email or what it is. It's more so about also all the collateral and the touch points that are happening in between. But we will be covering this on the next webinar when we're going to be able to jump into the next topic, which is go-to-market strategy, and which is the next step in our framework I was showing here before, which is the lead generation part here. Today we just covered this. So I'm going to wrap up. We're on top of the hour, and I think everybody has their own meetings. Or if you're in Europe, you probably want to just finally have your end of the day. So thank you guys for joining. I appreciate you all. And then stay in touch with us. We're hosting webinars like this every month. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.